So I got all the frame ends cut up. So these used to be here. You can see they're all lopped off now, even the ones that we steamed in recently. So we're gonna throw these up for sale on the website for everybody who's been asking about bits of wood from Arabella to do something with. They are roughly 1¼ inches thick by 2½ inches wide. The long ones are about 11 inches and the short ones are somewhere between 4 and 6 inches. Most of them are pretty clear. Some of them have some tiny little checks or tiny little defects since they were up where they were getting cut off anyways. But most of them are very, very usable timber. Unfortunately, we can't ship outside of the United States. There's just issues with shipping raw wood overseas. And it's oak, it's kind of heavy. So international shipping adds up to quite a bit. So unfortunately, this is only limited to folks in the United States. If you're overseas, maybe you know someone who can get some and bring it over to you at some point. I don't know. But yeah, check them out. They're on the website. Judging by how fast the rivets went last time, these should probably fly out of here as well. So if you want them, be quick. As always, thanks so much for the support. We really appreciate it. And we could not be making these videos and making all this progress without your help. So we really appreciate it. All right, back to work. Now that we've got the clamp in and that's all set, the next thing is to put in the breast hooks. And what the breast hooks do is they join the clamp and the shelf that'll later sit on here with the stem and stern of the boat. So since Arabella is a double ender, she has double the breast hooks. If she had a transom, she'd have a breast hook in the stem, and in the stern she would have quarter knees, which would do the same thing, and they would join the transom with the hull planking. And what the breast hook does is it just ties all this together and adds a bunch of rigidity. So there's a bunch of different ways to do this. So let's go take a look at Bud and Larry and what they recommend, and then we can go look at what Atkin has drawn in the plans, and we can see kind of how different these are. And then we can go look at the stem where I've already got most of a breast hook in, and we can see kind of how I decided to do it. So here we have two of our main guiding lights, How to Build a Wooden Boat by Bud McIntosh and Classic Boat Construction by Larry Parday. Bud McIntosh passed away quite a while ago, but we recently lost Larry Parday. He passed away just a couple weeks ago. All these old timers, they went and got old. So what Bud has drawn, as you can see, is a clamp but no shelf. And then his breast hook sits on the clamp forward of the forwardmost frames and gets bolted to the clamp and gets attached to the shear strake and attached to the stem. So pretty simple, not a particularly massive timber. And then if we come over to Larry, he's pretty much got the same thing. So he's got just a little breast hook in there that is just ahead of the forward frames, and it goes flush with the outside or with the inside of the planking. Planking gets screwed to it. Now, if we go look at the plans, we will see that Atkin has something totally different in mind. So for that, we got to go downstairs. Atkin has the breast hook drawn in, and he says it should be a 3-inch thick hackmatack knee, and it should connect to the stem and go 1, 2, 3 frames back, which is way bigger, way bigger than anything that Larry or Bud have drawn. So you can see I've highlighted the breast hook here in black. You can see where the dotted line goes. That's underneath the shelf. So this right here is the breast hook. So he has solid blocking from the stem past the first frame, and then the breast hook goes on the inside face here of the clamp and goes all the way past the third frame. So that is huge compared to what Larry and Bud have in their boats. I mean, just absolutely unbelievably massive in comparison. And if we look in the stern, he's got basically the same exact thing, only bigger. So it's highlighted in black here, goes underneath the shelf on the inside face of the clamp, and goes back 3 full frames. So you can imagine that as one big grown timber would make the stern of that boat incredibly, incredibly strong. So we've looked at Larry, we looked at Bud, and we looked at what Atkin have drawn. And Larry and Bud are pretty much on the same page. Atkin is reading out of a whole nother book. And then if we look at what Victoria had. So here is one of Victoria's, and this is 2 blocks of what I think are mahogany that were glued together and obviously through bolted. I think that this is her stem because it's smaller and narrower than what would be in the stern. I'm pretty sure this was her stern breast hook. And this is a piece of hackmatack or tamarack that we cleaned up. I think I'm going to reuse this not as a breast hook, but maybe as a knee in the boat. So we can see that these are maybe a little bit bigger to similar size as to what Larry and Bud have drawn. These are a far cry from what Atkin has drawn for Ingrid. Now Victoria and Arabella, they're 2 different boats. Atkin Eric versus the Atkin Ingrid. So Arabella, the Ingrid, is 6 feet longer. She's a little bit of a bigger boat. And I don't have the plans for Victoria, so I can only guess. So I'm willing to bet that if I got the plans for the Eric, it would have breast hooks drawn in just like the Ingrid does. And the builders looked at these giant grown crooks that Atkin wanted that make almost a perfect U and kind of laughed at Atkin and said, yeah, right, keep dreaming, buddy. I mean, those timbers do exist, but they are fairly hard to find. And the builders, more than likely, just put in these smaller breast hooks like Larry and Bud do. And I'm going to kind of split the difference a little bit. We don't have a giant grown timber that we can put in there. I really don't want to weld up and stick that much bronze in the stem and stern. It's 1, really expensive, and 2, I don't think it's really required. But I would like to do a little bit beefier than what Victoria had and more in line with what Atkin had drawn. This is what I came up with for the stem breast hook. So it's got 2 wings on either side that are made out of some live oak that we got donated a while back. And then the center here, this big block, is a big piece of white oak rootstock from when we cut up the knees. This right here would be bigger than what Victoria had. And these wings here, I think, will go a long way towards what Atkin kind of had in mind with extending that strength and rigidity a little farther back into the hull. Now these are all going to get through bolted. So there'll be a bolt that goes through the breast hook, or all the way right through the centerpiece here, right through the stem. So that'll pull that in. There will be a bolt that'll go through this frame, through the nose of the wing, through the center blocking, through the nose of the wing, and out the other frame. That'll get through bolted. This up here will get through bolted, and then through bolts will go through the frame, through the clamp, through the wing. Same thing over here, and then back here as well. So by the time all of this is bolted together, it should be pretty strong. And then don't forget that the shelf is going to go over all of this. So there's going to be a locust shelf that's 6 inches wide that's going to come in here, and it's going to meet right in the center on top of the center blocking. And once the shelf's in, it's going to get screwed and through bolted down through the wings and through the center blocking. So the through bolts will keep it from wanting to do anything like that, and having the shelf over the top of it and screwed down will basically be adding gussets to the top of it. And this thing is just going to be riddled with fasteners, and I think it should work quite well. I still got to do the final fit, so that'll end up getting closed up a little bit. You know, it's clamped in place. And these checks here are not really anything to worry about. This is a big chunk of really gnarly, tight grained rootstock. Those checks won't really cause any problem. And there's, you can see the shelf here that the clamp sits on. There is a shelf on this side too. There was just a bit of a check and the very end of it broke off, but it's back there. So I want to make up all the bolts and bolt these two in at the same time. So I got this one pretty close. We'll jump into the stern, we'll get that one knocked out. And then I can do the final fits on them, paint them, and fasten them in the next few days. Well, this is the last of our live oak pile. Not too much left here. A few boards. This is the one I'm after. Let's see if we can get it out of here. Man, this stuff is heavy. Now we can get our two wings out of this one chunk of oak. And right now what I'm trying to do is get these roughed out so that I can put them through the thickness planer and get them nice and flat and smooth and down to the correct thickness, because right now they're too thick. And then I'll put the pattern back on them and mark them out more accurately. But I don't want to be planing material that I don't have to plane, and if these are cut down to individual pieces, they're going to be a heck of a lot easier for me to throw around and move. Put them through the big thickness planer is I had to take quite a bit off of them, and that big thickness planer really removes material in a hurry, but it leaves kind of a rough finish, especially with the interlocked grain on the live oak. So that's why I did the last bunch of passes with the Delta to smooth those out. But they are down to thickness now, and I've got the pattern, and then I'll work on getting these fit, and hopefully I can get these fit today, and then tomorrow I can start working on the blocking. I got these roughed out, and now I can mark them out and cut them for real. And the other thing I gotta do is cut bevels on them. So I'm gonna stick one off to the side. So we're gonna leave that for the port, and we're gonna keep focusing on starboard here. And that's gonna sit in like that. So we'll pick up the bevels probably here. Clamp's gonna be in the way, so we'll come out here and then get the end. So bevels, bevels, bevels. And that should give us a good idea. This is where having a few of the deck beam patterns is really making a difference. Throw the bevel gauge up under there. And because this is an arc Probably actually better off to put the bevel gauge this way, because I don't want to be measuring it with like a big bevel gauge all the way out here and straightening out the arc. I really just want to know what it's right around here, what it is. So, what's the angle? Put in our gauge here. So, 20 degrees. So 18 degrees. So 18, 20, and 20. So I think if I cut this whole thing to 19 degrees, we can fit it in here and do a little bit of shimming. Not shimming, but do a little bit of fitting, do a little bit of shaving on it, and it'll set right in there, as opposed to trying to follow it with the bevel saw and trade degrees here as we go. So I'm gonna go get this cut out, and then we'll see how it fits. So this is what we end up with. Tapered cut on an arc, which is always fun to do. And then we'll have to connect where the nib here is by hand, and then continued at the bevel where it goes along the hull. I'm gonna do the same thing for the other side. I'm just gonna blow through it here and get it done. So next up is just I'm going to make basically a block that'll fit right in here. It'll have a shelf that the wings for the breast hook here will sit onto, just like in the stem. And it'll come up in the middle, and then we'll make another big wedge that fits in here, and all of that gets bolted together. So I think for the center block, right up against the stem, this big crotch of white oak will work. So I think I can cut a block right out of here, and that'll go up against the stem, and the wings will come off either side of it, and that is all twisted and interlocked grain. So I think that'll work well. Yeah, we haven't been down here in a while, have we? Alright, and this I think is what I'm going to cut the more triangular piece out of. So this is a huge chunk of white oak, and this is from our first round of milling. So this has been seasoned for jeepers, like 5 years now, and that should work for that big triangular piece I'm going to need. I have to say, it is really nice to be starting to work with small timbers. Because compared to planks and center lines and all that, this is a nice just little piece of wood. So, it's going to be something like that. The wings that we have in now will come in onto this. This will obviously get quite a bit smaller. And then out of that we'll get cut the other piece. We'll have to see how it all goes. That is the idea. And then we'll through bolt through the whole thing. So, we'll cut the block out like that. I don't know if you can see the pencil lines here or not, but this is where the rebate will be. So we'll cut these down parallel with the keel here, with the center line, and then this rebate, the shelf here, will sit underneath and support these. Trim this back a little bit. So we're going to end this block probably somewhere in there. So cut that off. And the next step is going to be to rough out that block and then get these trimmed. And I got to start picking up angles and being careful how I go about doing this, because they all gotta, these they don't really look at, but they're coming in at an angle. So I got to cut the bottom of the angle at the rebate. And then these, if they're cut at 90, they're going to be funny angles at the top here. So I want to make sure that when I cut these, I cut them at the correct angle so that they're plumb and they're just dropping down. That way when I cut the rebate, I can cut the top 90 and I can do the edge at an angle and take it out, and it should fit right in there. But we will see. So, I found it's easier when you're cutting a piece out of the middle to extend all the lines out to the edge, so there's no guessing where you need to start your cut. So right now I'm gonna cut these sides off, cut the back off here. Now that this is roughed out, I gotta go pick up the bevel for the front here where it's gonna meet the stern post. And we'll get that cut. And then the next thing is gonna be to cut the rebates in the side. They're going to accept the wings for the breasthook. So you can see what's going on here. We got one tree center there, one tree center there. These will get cut off. So this is where, you know, the tree branched one way and the other. And everything in the middle here is all twisted and interlocked and tight. Because as that tree shook and moved, all of this material here had to avoid splitting, which is exactly the role it's going to play in the boat. Well, looks like I got a little handwork there to do. The beam saw would get through it, but that is currently at Thad's. He borrowed it to work on his keel timber and other centerline structures. So, go throw it in the pattern maker's vise and attack it with the handsaw. Okay. So I got my shelves I'm going to leave down here on the bottom. And now we got to cut those in at a 2-degree angle for a depth of 1 1/4. So let's set up the table saw. This is where I got to make sure I cut this the right way, especially when it's towards the end of the day. My brain's a little tired. So that's going to mate against the keel like that. The wings come in a little bit of an angle, which is much too steep, but that's just the direction they're going. So that's cocked at the angle. It's going that way, we should be going in. So if I put the fence, the thickness of my rebate here, I should be able to run it through like that, flip it, and run it. In the last little bit, you might have noticed a distinct lack of extra help and kind of volunteers around here that we normally have. And the reason for that is, one, we're in the middle of COVID and trying to keep things a little quiet in terms of how many people are coming around the shop, with Grandpa being around and Joe, and I'd rather have them around and make sure that they stay healthy than have a whole bunch of people here. But another big part of it is my dream was to build a boat, to cut down the trees, to mill the lumber, and to take it on some adventures. It was never to be a project manager. And I realized that there's definitely some level of project management that goes with doing the boat, and building the boat with friends and with volunteers is generally a lot more enjoyable than building the boat solely by myself. But like I said, the dream was not to run a crew that builds Arabella. The dream was to build Arabella. So while we've been doing planking and framing and all of these kind of things that really require a lot of hands, they make it a heck of a lot easier. We've had a lot of volunteers in the boathouse, and it has been fantastic. Everyone who's come has been really awesome to work with, and we've got a lot of, in my opinion, really great work done. But at the same time, the more people are here, the faster problems come up. So when I'm here working by myself, things come up as I encounter them. And you add another person, that's twice as fast, and then 3 is 3 times as fast, and 4 is 4 times as fast. Having a bunch of people here also makes the filming a little more challenging, so I got to set up cameras on them and cameras on me and chase them around and figure all that out, and being interrupted with questions and stuff, which is just how it goes. It's not a problem. Please don't take this as me complaining about volunteers. They've been awesome, and I'm looking forward to having more in the future. But just wanted a little time where there were things that I could work on by myself, like getting the clamp in and doing the breasthooks, where I could spend some time, just me, the cameras, work on Arabella, and have some of that time. Because unfortunately, I don't get a whole heck of a lot of it. So tomorrow I'm going to pick up Bob Emser, who has a channel, The Art of Boat Building. Bob's been out here before. He helped us put up some of the center line and build the gantry crane for that. Bob's also the guy who got us set up welding the bronze floors. Bob not only understands boat building, but he understands YouTube and videos, because he has his own channel. It's The Art of Boat Building. You might see me with that blue shirt on that says The Art of Boat Building. That's Bob Emser's channel. So he can run cameras, and he can help me out with all of that, as well as being a very accomplished and talented craftsman. So I'm really looking forward to having Bob here for the 10 days. And then after that, I'll probably shut the doors a bit and work by myself for a while on deck beams and getting these oak knees in, which I'm really looking forward to doing. And then shortly after that, Alix will be back, and we'll get back into kind of the normal swing of things. So bear with me when things are a little bit slow and I'm in the shop by myself, but just know and appreciate that I'm trying to get a little time here with Arabella and kind of fulfill my dream of building my boat and take a little bit of a step back from so much project management and managing people, and just kind of enjoying some time alone in the shop. So that's my rant. That's what's going on. Now I'm going to make some dinner because I'm hungry.
Thanks for joining us today. And a special shout out to all of our supporters on Patreon. It's what keeps these videos coming each week. And you can follow the links here to find out how to become an ongoing supporter yourself. Next week, Steve will bolt in the breasthooks he made up today. And with Bob Emser's extra 2 hands, they'll start making progress on the locust shelf. See you next week.